goes to the end, you have to close it down.
What is it? No, what he's saying is...
What did Starmer say?
Lockdown.
What's going on
Keir
now?
Starmer wants to do a full-on lockdown for food.
He doesn't have the final say,
Even
so
schools.
He said schools do, which I don't understand that. But
No point because everybody's not mixing at home, but all the kids are mixing.
all the kids are mixing at school.
How do you change that? Show me how you do that. What did you just
Double
do?
click it,
Double click it.
and then you do. There we are.
Yeah, that's what Keir Starmer wants.
Good evening, Yehuda. I hope you're okay. Next Tuesday, Wednesday, I will definitely, unless something really drastic happens, the Chastas on Wednesday, Tuesday, I have to be there. Chasta, yes. Chasta, what's a Chasta? Chasta is...
You're obviously one of the 6.
That's right.
15, sorry.
What?
I use expressions today.
There was...
Combine the wedding with a Gucci one, you get 45.
Yes.
If you marry a dead guy,
I have to kill somebody.
Go that far.
anybody on your coat?
You get a man. Right, let's go.
Totally on your coat.
Well, after Samach Hey Amud Aleph, quite 10 lines from the top. We actually did quite a bit yesterday. Amen.
Right. We live.
Yeah, we're live, we're starting. We talked a little bit yesterday about being shikas. The more carries on the more complicated expressions. Omar B'chanina. Kol hamapik mogein b'shas gaiva. Omar B'chanina. Kol hamapik mogein b'shas gaiva. It's a bit cryptic. The word mogein refers to Shmoneh Esrei. Does anybody know why the word mogein is Shiur would refer to Shmoneh Esrei? Because the first bracha says Mogen Avam. That's how Rashi explains. Because I'm actually Chaim said Rashi. The Meiri says, I thought maybe somebody would say it. What? Oh, you should have two Lechaims. Meiri says because Shmoneh Esrei is a protection. Shmoneh Esrei is the greatest protection. So that's the word Mogen. What's mapik mean? Mapik actually means to remove. To remove. If you remove Shmoneh Esrei, means you don't daven Shmoneh Esrei. The Shas Gaiva, when you're shikah, when a person's shikah, he feels very grounded in himself, then he's a good person because he's showing that he has respect for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he's refusing to say Shmoneh Esrei when he's shikah. You think that's not good. He's not. He's a great person. He's showing a reverence to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's nice word, reverence. Yes. This is so green, and therefore, so green, the Chus bin Sois Badoi. Hashem will remove all troubles from him. So somebody who gets removed, mapik is to remove. Mogen is Shmoneh Esrei. I've said two explanations. Gaiva means when you're shikah. It's quite a cryptic comment. Gaiva, when you're haughty, a person who is shikah thinks the world of himself. Then Sugim v'chis v'sois b'adam, we removed tzor. It's Shenema. Gaiva afike migonim sogu chis tzor. Again, the pasuk chis tzor means we seal harm. Soft word tzor. Gaiva is lashon gaiva, so as I said, shikah. Afike megoni means removing megoni, removing Shmoneh Esrei. It says, well, my mashma da apik lishna boyu. How do I know that the word apik means to remove? That's a strange word, apik, to remove. Dichsiv, Eiruvin, it's very interesting. People know why Eiruvin had a terrible tragedy. He's 3, and then eventually a 4th friend came, and he spent 7 days not saying a word, in thinking, contemplating. Imagine for 7 days not saying a word. And then they all tried to argue with Eiruvin as to what he had done wrong to deserve it. And the reality was Eiruvin had done no averos. And there wasn't the reason he deserved it. Ramban says because of Gilgal, others say for different reasons. But anyway, so what happened was, Eiruvin was very upset with him. And he said that you have been, my brothers and friends, meaning my close companions, have betrayed me because they blamed him for his tzoros, which was actually a big avero, because you're not allowed to say to somebody that his tzoros come from his averos. So he compared them to a river that is in the winter but not in the summer. A river, sometimes you have these rivers where there's a lot of rainfall. I've actually seen such a river where there's a lot of rain, and after a week or two of no rain, it's gone. Now, such a river is a total waste of time. Why? Because when it's raining, you don't need the river. And when it's actually hot and you need the river, it's not there. So that's why he compared them. It's like friends that are only there when you don't need them, right? So this way he says in the Pasuk, Siv Achai, my brothers Bogdu, they have betrayed, K'moy Nachal, like a river, K'afik Necholim Ya'avoru, like a river that passes, they pass. It's referring to one of these rivers. First, I thought translated as flash floods, but it's not really the same thing. It's a flash river, maybe. Okay. So we see what the afik means to remove. Now, Rabbi Yochanan says exactly the same halacha, exactly the same dvasha, with a slightly different understanding. And we'll ask what's the difference. Rabbi Yochanan, somebody who does not reveal. He translates the word mapik, not to remove, but to reveal. And somebody who does not reveal Shmoneh Esrei when he's shikar, meaning somebody when he's shikar, out of reverence, he does not reveal. I mean, he does. It is not. Then he is somebody who is great. My mashma dai mapik mishna de gulu yehu. How does he see the word mapik means to reveal? That when HaKadosh reveals himself times Mashiach, everybody, even the depths of the sea, will see the greatness of Hashem. So we see what Afiki can be to reveal. So one explanation in the apostle, which we said earlier, is that person who removes Shmoneh Esrei when he's shikar, that is good. The other explanation is somebody who does not reveal Shmoneh Esrei when he's shikar is great. The question is, what's the difference? Both are the saying that when the person is shikar, shouldn't have Shmoneh Esrei. Says what mechti koi mashma ben amar ben amar. You can explain the pasuk either way. My benayu ikke benayu do Rav Sheshes. The difference is Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes mosa shin se l'shomim. Rav Sheshes was once shikar, drunk. So what did he do? He told his gabba, "I'm going to sleep now. Wake me up soon in time for Mariv." Why? Because he knew that when you're shikar, you can't daven. On the other hand, he didn't want to miss the davening. So therefore, he went to bed to woke him up. The question was that necessary or not? That's what Yehuda is the Rav Sheshes. He holds Rav Sheshes because he says those who don't reveal, not that they remove Shmoneh Esrei, but they don't reveal it now. Later they will. Less later Rav Sheshes of Chedina doesn't hold Rav Sheshes. He holds that when a person's shikar, you should keep away from davening altogether. So it's a different expression. Because everybody agrees a person's shikar shouldn't daven Shmoneh Esrei. It's only should he then go to sleep and then get woken up, but he'll still be groggy. And should he say Shmoneh Esrei like that? Rabbi Yochanan says he should. And the Chedina says it's not necessary. Well, it says, fight to that. The world goes on. We mentioned shikar, if you remember. What? Very hard to, because we had the Gemara yesterday. If you can talk in front of a king, somebody who can't talk in front of a king, somebody who can't slur his words. Okay, that's a good word. Slurs his words. So we had the Gemara of shikar because we had Nachman who liked one member, not the other. Then we ended up talking about davening when you're shikar. No, by duchning we're much more machmir. By duchning, a kohen really is not allowed to drink anything. Yeah, even one cup of wine is a person. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch, and that's was it the beginning of Chelik Beis. Even one cup of wine. Interesting, Taka.
Oh, sure.
I think that'd be okay. I don't know. I can't say because it's a din. It's a din of cup of wine.
Small disposable.
When do you have it? Before Shachris? Why?
You don't
Is that really good?
you say yeah.
It's like medicine. It's like medicine.
I don't know.
That's
Yeah, Pashas, that's okay. That's
Do
right.
the whole Sukkot davening again now.
He has to do sukkahs of Chanukah.
I daven Muslims drunk.
Okay.
You need to have a lot more.
Okay. Now we're talking about davening Shmoneh Esrei when your mind is clear. If a person struggles, our songs recently describing how concentrating is like holding on to a piece of ice. When the harder you put your grip around it, the more it slips out of your hand. It slips out of your hand. No, it slips. It slides out. You have to hold it gingerly. The mind during Shmoneh Esrei, if you grasp it very tight, it doesn't work. It's quite hard to concentrate on Shmoneh Esrei every word. The one over here backs us up. A person doesn't have Yeshiva Das, Ali Spali Shuntav, Mishmushanema, but sound, the person in pain, Al Yoreshum Pasuk. There's one very ancient thing about this Pasuk. Rashi tells us this Pasuk does not exist. He doesn't know what to do about it. It's there. Shnema, Batzal, Yoreh, it doesn't exist anywhere. Look at Rashi. Rashi says, B'dakti acha mikozah, look to this Pasuk, Ve'enu b'chalek sum, it's not written anywhere. V'shem b'sefer ben Silahu. There was a very, very wise person called Ben Sira. Some say he was a son of Yirmiyahu Novi. It was called Ben Sira. Sira literally means a bath. Yirmiyahu Novi once, after having relations with his wife, sitting in a bath, and some of the zera was left on the side of the bath, and the woman afterwards went to a bath, and she became impregnated from that zera, and that was Ben Shiur. That's why it's called the son of the bath. But anyway, he wrote a sefer. It's actually quoted in the Gemara in Sanhedrin quite extensively. So the Ma'aser Rashi says maybe it's a Ben Shiur. Rashi didn't know Ben Shiur. And if you look at this text, the second text of the page, he brings many places in Shas that Gemara quotes a pasuk which doesn't exist. And he said maybe they're all from Ben Shiur. Alternatively, what the Gemara means is Shenema. We find a similar idea in a different pasuk. So Shenema doesn't mean literally that the pasuk says this, and then he tries to find psukim that say a similar idea. So it's interesting to ask. On the day that he got annoyed, he wouldn't daven. Can you imagine? If he got annoyed that day, he didn't daven the entire day. It says when a person is angry, when impatient. On the day when there was a south wind, the south wind is not pleasant. That when you get a northern wind, then it's very calm, it's very pleasant to have northern wind. So only on the day when there's a northern wind should you pass, not on the day there's a southern wind. If my stepmother would have said, why was it the stepmother? He never saw his mother. Abaya was a Yosim from a young. Abaya stands for the word Asher B'chol Yerucham Yosim. It was a Yosim from a baby. So if my wet nurse or stepmother, if she would have once asked me Kov Kutcha to pass Kutcha, does anybody remember what Kutach is made out of?
Like honey and
Old milk, stale bread and salt. So you must remember, they used to use it as a dip. Yeah, had it in brachas, right?
what did you say?
Or bracha, and also how much do you have to, what did you say about the fashos on it? But the Ma'aser, if she would have once in her life said to me, Kov Kutcha, not once, and on the day, she would have said, pass me the Kutach, I wouldn't have learned so well that day. Because when a person is not absorbed in his learning, he can't learn so well. So a person doesn't have distractions. If she would have said to me, it's like interesting Gemara. No, he would have learned as well that day.
Why was he distracted?
Because he's not being able to focus on his learning.
Why he has to get food?
Why that food?
No, because that means like this. She said,
food.
pass me the ball. So he passes the ball. So for a minute, his mind is not properly
that
focused.
Why that food?
No, because that's a very easy thing to do. You know, the famous story, it's actually brought down. I've seen it, that Yehuda wife said that she never ever asked her to do anything. Once she was very ill, she asked him to put in the hot water. They had no kettle. She put the water in a pot. And he got so exhausted in his learning, so focused in his learning, he forgot about it. And she came out of bed a few minutes later to find the pot had a hole inside it. There was water all over the foot, overboiled, and it was a huge mess. And with all her sore throat, she went and wiped it up. It's interesting. I know how this kind of Gemara is difficult. It's interesting. You have to be careful. You have to. And one says a similar vein. Omar Baba, if a lice would be in my hair, I can't learn that day as well because it's distracting. His mother would make him Yomi. She didn't want him to ever have to worry about dirty clothes. She should prepare for him 7 sets of clothes for 7 days of the week. So he should never have to wear the same clothes twice, and then should wash that week. I mean, he should always set out from his clothes in a way that there shouldn't be any problems of having to worry about his clothes. Omar Yehuda, a person should make sure to spend the night sleeping. If you look, unfortunately, very short text is 3 words. In Tammuz you should sleep, but not in Teves, because in Tammuz you got a very short night. But in Teves, the Tisrosh is Marich. He only brings this word. Says in Teves, what should you do with the night? Learn. Yes, the Rambam you should spend your night learning. Right? The daytime, that's right. The daytime was made for learning because then you can see properly what you're doing. What I learned in the day is more clear for me because I've got more energetic. You can learn in a clear mind. The same Ron Govitz doesn't stay up Shavuos by night. I've heard it from a few. I've heard it from his son. It doesn't stay up Shavuos by night. Why? No, because he learns during the day. Last Shavuos, by the way, didn't stay up for Shavuos by night because he wants to be able to learn clearly. So,
His learning starts at 2 o'clock in the morning.
okay, fair enough. I didn't change the schedule. What? I don't think they did. Vogel certainly doesn't. I don't know about Rashi. Again, oh, this is a Gemara to put us in place. you don't want to go to bed, the Chista was learning all night. So his daughter said to him, don't you want to sleep a bit? Oh my Lord, he said, Ashta, now eventually also Yomi Davichi Viktini. It'll be long and short days, meaning long in the burial place, in the grave, you have a very long time to sleep. But they're very short because they're very short in your capability of learning. So the long and short days, they're long in time and short in what you can actually do. Benenim Tuva, and in those days I'll sleep well. At the moment, I won't waste my time sleeping. The person needs to sleep. There's a famous Taz, a sort inside. That if a person, it says that yes, you need to be healthy. We are hired by the day, meaning that we're employees. And since we're employees, therefore we have to work full time. We can't take off here and there. We have to work constantly. Just like if you employ somebody, you expect them to give you a full hour. So also we're employees of Hashem. We're employees and employer. Employer is the boss, right?
Employer is the boss.
Yeah, so employees. We're all employees. All employees. He would make a schedule every day. And if you didn't finish the learning that day, he would pay it up that night. The person has to pay it up that night if he doesn't manage to finish that day. Somebody who came from a journey, for 3 days. What happened was, Ezra and Nehemiah came and took the Eden to Eretz Yisrael by the second Beis Hamikdash. What happened? The dramatic thing, quite not dramatic. What happened by the second Beis Hamikdash? A very big thing, which some people are very aware of, is that the Eden didn't come. That's right. Hardly anybody came. But when did they notice? It took them 3 days of camping till they saw. What took 3 days of camping? When they finished the journey, they spent 3 days resting. And after 3 days of resting, they noticed that hardly anybody came up. I was very annoyed about it. Why did it take 3 days? Because when you're just from a journey, your mind's not so clear. So therefore, we see from over here that 3 days after a journey, should come up. I remember there's 3. And there's Sameach teaching that. People used to say, why did we all move to Eretz Yisrael, all the people living in England? You see how annoyed Ezra and Nehemiah were that people didn't come. Maybe we're doing the same mistake again. They didn't have Beis Hamikdash then either. They were, what? Yes, I know. Maybe
we're in a beer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
If a Novi comes along and says move to Eretz,
yes. You see, it's a source to the idea that perhaps we should be. No, I'm not. You're right. I agree with you. I'm not saying I haven't moved myself. It's something to think about. Oh. The father of Shmuel came on a journey he didn't daven for 3 days. Shmuel he wouldn't daven in a house which had beer. Why would Shmuel not daven in a house that has beer inside it?
Smell it.
And therefore you could smell it. The smell would distract him. A popular matter is this: a house no. House was a kind of dip, a fish juice, which was very, very strong smell. Fish juice actually does smell very strong. What? Fried fish. So therefore you couldn't daven in the place. The tool brings some of these gemores, not all of them, a lot of these gemores come in the tool. And the tool finishes off. And nowadays we don't agree with any of these gemores. Why? Because we anyway never have kavanah. I'm not sure if it's terrible. I'm not sure what's. He says that. No, because interesting. What says that for 3 days after a journey, he went down. I just came back from Gates. I went down for 3 days. Imagine nowadays. You also went to Newcastle, didn't you? Ah. The mice. Imagine if every time it's been. It's right. You see, also for 3 days, he shouldn't daven after the journey. Omar B'chanina. Somebody.
Does it mean when it says a place of bit in the cup?
I hear. I never thought of it. Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi. I hear. Rashi doesn't say that, but it could be. It means literally a bowl.
You go to that house with beer in the fridge.
Being drunk.
I hear. I'm not sure how that to check that. It's true because we don't pass it. It'd be hard to find. Somebody who feels better after he drank wine. Yes, we would ask, he's similar to Hashem. That means being cheerful from wine is similar to Hashem. Why? Shonema, next week's parasha. After the Mabul, Noach brought kabbonos, he made a nice smell, and Akshmoch then regretted bringing a Mabul. And what happened was, Akshmoch said, I won't bring a Mabul again. So we see that a good smell, so we see that if a person cheers up after a cup of wine, it's not a lack of greatness, on the contrary. So So Rashi explains it's referring to somebody that drinks wine bein datim v'tarefes. I once read the biography of Simchas Yisrael of Kelm. Somebody said about him that he could drink an entire bottle of whiskey and not change in his mannerism. No, I don't know. I should know. Joking apart, I used to speak to the certain Rav I once went to visit him the first night before him because I had little children, I had nothing to do. Baruch Hashem. Nowadays you can't do anything on before you're rushing around trying to. Anyway, right, I went to him and he drank in front of me and he drank. I can't drink, I guess. I can't stomach it. He drank and drank and he carried on talking and learning with his mind thing. Of the Rizal he was called, the abuse of Rizal in there. So a big time, an older person. And then said, oh, the Gemara says that in a minute. The Gemara says somebody who's able to control his mind. And in the biography of Sukkot it says, just like if a person is in a very, very tense situation, let's say he's in front of a lion, it doesn't make a difference how much he drinks. He will still be under cautious. He had such a Shemai that it didn't change his mannerism. He was so focused. Okay. Yain nitten b'ayin wine, the gematria of wine is 70, yud nun, so yud is 10, nun is 50. The soy nitten b'ayin the gematria of soy is 70 as well, 66 and 4. Nichnasayin yotza soy, if a person learns, drinks wine, he ends up revealing his secrets. Oh, Hashem created wine.
It's the same thing.
Okay. Nechem avelim, to make avelim feel better. Or the shalom schal rishoyim, in order that rishoyim should get their rewards for their good behavior in this world and get nothing in the Olam Haba. Shenema, tnu sheichel le'oved v'gevim. If you look at the whole passage, the passage is like this: tnu sheichel le'oved v'yayin le'moy nefesh. Why give wine to oved? Oved is somebody who's getting lost. Who's getting lost is a rasha. A rasha loses his way to Gan Eden. V'yayin and wine le'moy nefesh is somebody who is bitter, meaning somebody who's just lost or has a loss. So there are two good purposes for wine. One is for somebody who's done averos, they should get no Gan Eden, that means to enjoy this world, pleasures. And the other reason is for somebody indeed who's going through a hard situation, to have wine to feel better. If wine doesn't spill in your house like water, he hasn't reached the epitome of bracha. That's why lots of people have a minute, night of Motzei Shabbos, where it's a big time of school for bracha, to spill some of the wine. If you look in this Rashi, it's the second to bottom Rashi. Even if you're a multi-millionaire, if you haven't had wine spilling in your house, you're obviously not really a blessed person. When wine spills in your house, that shows blessing. So therefore, it's an Indian type of wine, spilled wine. The person compares bread to water. Now, the Gemara's got a question over here. Bread, are you allowed to buy Ma'aser Sheni? Remember Ma'aser Sheni? What's Ma'aser Sheni? You take 10%, second 10%, you take it to Yerushalayim. And if you can't, it's too much to Yerushalayim, you redeem it on money and go to Yerushalayim. Did everybody remember what are the things you're not allowed to buy? We actually learned it. What you're not allowed to buy in Ma'aser Sheni money? Salt, very good. And one other thing. Water. Oh, you're not allowed to buy water. So now the apostle compares bread to water. Now water can't be bought with Ma'aser Sheni and bread can. So mine new yain, it must be to our wine. Or we could call it mine, the Torah refers to it, water, top of some base. And says, a person can be chosen only through, that is, if water is spilled like water, then he's blessed, if not, not. There are three ways to recognize what a person really is. Because how he treats money, that means, because is wine, how he behaves when he's shikah, or because does he deal honestly with people, or when he gets annoyed? And some say even when he's making jokes, how he behaves. Very powerful Gemara. Famous Gemara. A person can tell the true value of a person through his cup, his purse, and his anger. Now we're going back, finish with our Gadata. We're going to have halacha and basically finish our Gadata for some time. So now, let's a very quick summary. A Yid lives in a chotzer by himself. He does not need an Eiruvin because the whole chotzer belongs to him. Two Yidim require an Eiruvin. Two Yidin and a Goy, Chazal were not keen because they're scared to get influenced. So you can't rent. So you can't do an Eiruvin with a Goy. You can only rent from the Goy. You can't even do B'tul Rishus. The only thing that works is to rent from the Goy. And we hope that the Goy will want, and eventually be forced. If it's one Yid and one Goy, does anybody remember what's the halach?
Doesn't need to.
So we had the Machlekes from Meir and Rabbi ben Yaakov. That's Rabbi Yaakov. Okay, fair enough. I thought you could see. But Meir holds that you have to rent from it because the Meir holds that sometimes the Yid lives with a going on that. Rabbi ben Yaakov says it's very rare that should happen. We're going to discuss now a chotzer lifted mechotzer. There's no actual picture of it. The arts could actually have a picture of it, I noticed. There was a picture we had earlier, a picture of the Tofyut base, but it's not so bad. It's not so hard to picture. You've got two chatzeros, an inner and an outer. The inner one, to get to the main road, has to go through the outer, right? So you've got one chotzer inside. That's you've got Yid and a Goy living there. And the outer, what? And that's an entrance to the main road is only on one end. So, for example, this would be one chotzer, and then this would be another chotzer, and you want to get out, you have to get to the entrance. So there are two main shayas the Gemara is going to have. What happens if a Yid and a Goy live here, and the inner one, and one Yid lives in the outer? Alternatively, one Yid lives on the inner, and a Yid and a Goy live on the outer. Yes, that's two shayas the Gemara is going to have separately. We have to remember, one Yid and a Goy is machlokes from Meir and Rabbi Yaakov anyway. Now there's a big machlokes we have called Regel HaMuteres B'Mkoimo. Does it asa shaloi b'Mkoimo? That is a rule. Go just very briefly like this. Whenever you have a right of way, do you forbid all the people that you have a right of way to go through from going through? That is a question which we're going to discuss. So, for example, let's say there's only two Yidim. One lives in the inner chotzer and one lives on the outer chotzer. So in the inner chotzer, the Yid can carry because he's the only one who lives there. Nobody ever comes inside. In the outer chotzer, does the outer person need an Eiruvin? You could argue, so why should you need an Eiruvin? I own the outer chotzer. The problem is that this person, the inner one, is going to go through it on Shabbos to get to his shul or wherever he may need. So that is called Regel HaMuteres B'Mkoimo, meaning that the person is allowed to walk around his own chotzer. But he's got Drisas Regel through another one. That's machlokes of Tanakama and Rabbi Akiva. This is not the same as a slightly different case. Is where there are two Yidden on the inner one and only one on the outer, where everybody agrees that the outer one's got a problem, which is very strange. Why should be a difference? Why should be a difference if there's two on the inside? The answer is if the two on the inside did not make an Eruv, so these people are people who cannot carry the people on the inside because they made an Eruv. Since they cannot carry, so when they go through the outer one, they bring with them, so to speak, the halachas of forbidding to carry. So that's called regular asur b'mkoimo. Everybody agrees it's a seres shalei b'mkoimo. The machlekes chachamim v'akiva is only regular muteres. If anything is not clear, stop straight away. Because tam chaval, not tam. The principles should be basically clear. So again, so now we're going to have this shaila. Omar Yehuda Marav. Yehuda said the name of the Rav. Yisol v'nochi b'pnimis. You've got Yid and a Goy in the inside chotzer. Yisol b'chitzoyin and another Yid in the outer. Well, if they Rebbe, the story came in front of Rebbe, v'osa, l'fei al-b'chir v'osa. Rebbe and B'chir forbade the people from carrying. Yosef, Rabbi, Rav Yosef, v'shili pilkei Rav Sheshes. Rav Yosef, after hearing a drasha from Rav Sheshes, was sitting and discussing it. Yosef, Rav Sheshes, would come, Keman, Omer Rav Lishmate. Why did Rav say it says osa? K'amer. He held like K'amer that word. What's K'amer hold? That one Yid, one Goy is osa. One Yid, one Goy is osa. Kalkish Rabbi Reishe, Rabbi nodded his head in agreement. Rabbi agreed with this. Omar Rav Yosef, Shegava, Ravi Kirabonon, two great people, that is of Sheshes and Rabbi. A little Bar Milsa, can they make such a terrible mistake? And will establish, in fact, that it was a mistake. Rabbi Sheshes made a mistake over here. Again, we had a Yid and a Goy on the inside and one Yid on the outside. Came along, Rabbi Sheshes said, okay, came along, Rabbi Mechian said, it is Asa. Came along, Rabbi Sheshes said, why is it Asa? Because of Shittas Rameh. What says, Ikra Meir, Lomeli Yisrael B'chitzena. Why did they have to discuss when there's another Yid on the inside, outside, talk about the inside without any other Yid? It's already Asa, even if there's nobody else around, just one Yid, one Goy. I will say, really, you're right. One Yid, one Goy is Asa. But what happened was, that was the story. They came to them and said, we had a Yid and a Goy on the inside, a Yid on the outside. What's the difference? They said it's Asa. But not that only because the Yid on the outside. Really, if you hold that to a Meir, without it also be Asa. And if you say that's the Svar, it says, well, no, that's not true. Why? But boy, they asked what about the inside? It means till now we said awesome. We didn't differentiate where is it awesome. That Rav came along and said no, it's only also in the outer chotz, in the penimi chotz is mutter. Again, well, you didn't go in the inside and one you on the outside. Came along Rabbi Mechir said awesome. Came along Rabbi Mechir said because of a mayor. Says no, it can't be a mayor. If it were a mayor, then the inside would be also alone. And Rav holds that the inside is actually mutter. The only problem begins when you go into the outside chotzer, but while they remain in the inside chotzer, they're okay. So the Gemara says, "Well, you said Yaakov. You don't have two yidden forbidding each other. Why not? Because let's take away the goy from here, from the equation. What would the din be? The yid would be allowed to carry on the inside, and the Gemara at this stage understood the yid would be allowed to carry on the outside as well, because two separate chatzers. So you haven't got two yidden asking each other. So only when you've got two yidden that require an eruv do you need the goy to have a problem. But here you don't have any problems with eruv that you have a problem with the goy. Only when you need an eruv do we say you can't rely on the goy's eruv and you have to do schirus. Because if you've got one chotzer, and you got the inner chotzer, I've got the outer chotzer, at this stage it's going to be understood that there's no din that you should require an eruv. You live in your chotzer, I live in my chotzer, why should we need an eruv? Oh, that's what I was going to answer, but I haven't understood. Definitely on the inside you don't need. So therefore, we're talking according to Shittas Rabbi Akiva. Now Rabbi Akiva holds that once you've got one yid on the inside, one yid on the outside, then the yid on the outside is asa. Why is he asa? Because it's the yid going through his chotzer. Once the yid going through his chotzer, it's no good. Says the boy, if that's the case, why did you come up with such a complicated question? Why didn't you just ask the question? One yid on the inside, one yid on the outside, what's the din? And Allah would have been it is asa. And we would have meant it is asa on the outside because you need an eruv. Why? They made an eruv. And this is how we pass. And it's not so complicated if you think about it. Again, one yid on the inside, one yid on the outside. The one on the inside is fine because nobody ever comes through. The one on the outside, we're going to Shittas Rabbi Akiva, that what? Also. Why? It's go right of what? Now, these two yidden, what did they go and do? They made an eruv. So there was absolutely no problem. The problem was there was a goy. Now, when you've got a goy, so now, it nothing to do with the mayor. Even according to Meleza ben Yaakov, you have a problem. Why? Because Meleza ben Yaakov agrees when you've got two yidden that are causing trouble to each other, you have to make an eruv that you can't rely on the goy. Therefore, now, what was the logic that Meleza ben Yaakov had that one yid, one goy, you don't need to, but it's mutter? What was the logic? Not shchiach. Why is not shchiach?
Because not often that would, because he's scared he'll get killed.
Scared he'll get killed. Scared he'll get killed. Now, what would you say the din would be if there's a yid and a goy on the outside and a yid on the inside? So now, Rashi explains that the other way around, the goy can't kill the yid. That means if the yid and the goy live on the inside and the other yid lives on the outside, if he suddenly wakes up one morning, can't find his neighbor's yid, he'll go to the goy and say, "Where's my friend?" So what would he say to him? He can't say I killed him. And he can't say he's left. Why can't he say he's moved out?
Go through
Chotzer. I know it's moved out. But the other way around, what can he say? He's gone out for the day. Since he's gone out for the day, he can kill him. Since he can kill him, so therefore what? It's not shchiach. Since it's not shchiach, maybe Meleza ben Yaakov holds that you don't need to end. Again, you've got yid and a goy living on the outside chotzer, and one yid living on the inside. Now, normally when you've got two yid, and the goy will be reluctant to kill him. Why? Because if he kills one, the other one will start investigating. What happened to my friend? Where's he gone? But in this particular case, the goy will not be so scared. Why would he not be so scared? Why would he not be so scared? Because the yid and the goy are living on the outside, and the other yid is living on the inside. So when the other yid on the inside investigates what happened to the yid on the outside, what will the goy say to him? He moved out. He's gone to another town. You didn't see him moving out. How could you see him moving out? You're living further down the road. He's moved out that way. Imagine you live on a cul-de-sac. One person lives the inside of the cul-de-sac, one's the outside of the cul-de-sac. The one on the inside of the cul-de-sac, every time he comes out of his house, the one on the outside knows that he's moved out. But the one on the outside, nobody knows what he's doing. So therefore, over here, what will happen is the goy can kill him. Since the guy can kill him, it's the shchiach. So therefore, it should be mutter without renting.
Will not be possible because he can come through. Not beside that.
No, you'd have to make an eruv mitzad the other yid. Mitzad, right? You'd have to make an eruv. Ma'is the Gemara doesn't like this logic because the Gemara says at the end of the day, Yidden are not that scared, and therefore it is awesome. So the Gemara suggests it and pushes away. But let's just say inside. Let's move up. You saw Benochi v'chitzoni. You've got Yidden to go on the outside. You saw B'plimis another Yid on the inside. Now, sometimes the Shech the Daya, the Milsus Nochi. Normally, when you got two Yidden the guy is scared. Where some Hashdas you saw, it's slightly different. Yeah, it's similar. If he kills the Yid, the other Yid will go and investigate and come and see and wonder what's going on. He'll ask, wait a second, I don't understand. There was a Yid living next door. Where's he gone? The guy can say to him, in the end of the day, the guy is still scared because when he kills the Yid on the outside, the Yid on the inside could be going past that minute and happen to notice. So if he doesn't want. When you tell something to a wise person, he can work it out himself that what? Rashi says, that is awesome. It's awesome. Why? Because at the end of the day, the Yid is confident to live like that. And therefore it's shchiach, and therefore it is awesome. Okay. Rishlokish v'tamidei d'Rab Chanina ikru lahu pindok. Rishlokish and the Tamid of Chanina went to a hotel. Now, there was many Yidden and one goy. So what's the halacha? I need an eruv because of the Yidden, and they need to rent from the goy. Right. Well, there's a small taste of it. It's quite a famous taste. Everybody knows the story of Rishlokish. He jumped across the river, and Mechan said, if you do tshuva, taste brings a couple of rayas that Rishlokish was actually a Talmud Chacham. He gave up his learning to become a robber, and then became back a Talmud Chacham. So the taste brings survived over here because Rabbi Yochanan lived after Rebbe. And eventually we see over here that Rishlokish was going with the Talmid of Chanina and discussing halachas, which was at the earlier stage. Chanina only lived 2 years after Rebbe died. Okay, it's a side point. So they came to this hotel, and what happened was, there was a goy, and imagine you all go together for Shabbos. Oh, we finish Eiruvin, we should go to a big hotel. What's a good hotel? What's a good hotel? No, what's a good hotel? Hilton. Waldorf. Right. And all he did except for one guy. So what do we need to do? We need to rent from the guy. There was no renter. That means the person, the tenant, was not around. Says Tosfos. The tenant, that means the person who was renting the hotel room. He wasn't there. And says Tosfos, perhaps you can guess it yourself. Not only he wasn't there, but his wife and children and his workers were not there. Because if his wife, children, or his workers were there, you could rent from them. But nobody was there. That's like the second to bottom Tosfos. There was nobody there. That means there was a hotel room. They couldn't catch him on. They have a mask here, but the hotel owner was there. Can we rent from him? If you can't throw out this, you can't rent. Didn't catch that. What do you mean?
They're staying in his hotel.
Yes.
They're renting.
They want to rent the room of the goy. They're renting their rooms. They also need to rent the property of the goy, because the goy's got his own hotel room. So right. So if he can't, even in that building, because that room they don't have access to. So if the hotel owner, you can't count the hotels if it's below. Yes. So if the hotel owner can't throw him out before his contract is finished, you can't rent from the hotel owner because he's got proper rights. When you can kick him out, since he could throw him out, you can rent. And the moment he hasn't thrown him out. Let's just rent. When we get to our Rebbes in the south, also, Shiur Rab Efes, Amanen Yofa System Shesachalti. We did the right thing. We rented. They rented from the hotel owner. That's right. They rented the. Yes, but the hotel owner had the landlord had the right to throw out the tenants.
Even though he hadn't yet.
even though you hadn't done so. Even though you hadn't done so, because you had the right to do so,
That was good enough.
that's considered that the hotel owner has a right to the room, and therefore I rent to the hotel owner. It's good enough. It's a very interesting thing over here. That means he's got power over the room. It's like a bit like when we rent from the police. The police not break into people's houses every day, but they have the ability to go into it. So therefore, men from them also go right. It's interesting. They rented from this hotel owner. Did they carry that Shabbos?
What
They said, let's. Well, obviously they carried,
Yeah.
but they didn't know the halacha.
I mean, did they carry a weight? So
No, they said we'll rent, and then after Shabbos, when we go, we'll ask out to the Chachamim what we'll
why
do.
would they bother renting if they're not even going to carry it?
Right, so obviously they rented, and they carried, but they didn't know the halacha. Yeah, he told them after Shabbos did correctly, but what did they do on Shabbos?
So why did they do it?
But they didn't know the halacha.
The colour.
Oh, Safed Davan the Kula. It's a very strange thing. The mitzvah is very arich. What do you mean Safed Davan the Kula? You've got a suffix. No, that's okay. Because
Did you say if you don't know the halacha, that's not good stuff?
I know. That's how I say to them as well.
Maybe there's no one to ask.
Maybe someday it says suffix Shiur Shalavar. Okay. No,
It's a Davar of a Davar because in a hotel room anyway.
no, it's one job on because the Chazal said that's that takana of Eiruvin that you cannot carry from your room. A very similar shaila. They had a hotel room. They stayed in a hotel. And then before Shabbos he wasn't around. He came on Shabbos. Someone's discussed this. He came on Shabbos. So they said, can you do the rental on Shabbos? What's the shaila? It says Seicha came out of Domi. Do we say the halachas of schirus, of rental from the goy, is the same halachas as Eiruvin? The halacha of Eiruvin is you have to do it on Friday. You can't do an Eruv on Shabbos. So just like you can't do an Eruv on Shabbos, you can't do a schirus on Shabbos. It's like bittul v'shus. Man mevatel v'shus afim v'Shabbos. Seicha afim v'Shabbos. We'll just see there's a big sugi about bittul v'shus. Bittul v'shus very briefly many times. It's like if one of us forgets to do an Eruv, what do? We just cancel the rishus to one person, and that one person is allowed to carry as much as he wants. And the rest of us are allowed to carry in the chutzah, but not from the house. We'll discuss it. Right. So that's what's got a shaila. Is it? I mean, no, it's a shaila. The takana of Chachamim when they established the idea of schirus. We saw already it's not brilliant schirus because you don't need to shove a putter and you don't need. Right. It's ruah. So therefore, the question is, can you do it on Shabbos? So the word says like this. Let's do it. Let's not do it. We can rely on the elderly person, which was a Chadida by Yosef. He was the older person, and they went it. Also, eventually they went to ask Rabbi Yochanan, you did the right thing. Yes, he was a higher authority. Came before Chadida. So Yofa you did the right thing. And the more actually goes back and forth about this, but that's how we pass But we'll have to stop here because if we do the next Gemara, it's already going to be half the almond because it doesn't stop. So let's go very briefly. We've learned two colors regarding schirus from a goy just now. Two colors were A, that you can rent from the renter, from the landlord, from the what's the better word for it? Landlord. So you can rent from the hotel owner, hotelier, and you can rent in the middle of Shabbos. You can rent in the middle of Shabbos. So if
what do you do if you're in a hotel? Just you and another Yiddish family can't carry.
You can't carry from your
Speak to the
room.
landlord and get him to rent the whole.
That's right. That means from your bedroom to the hallway you can't carry. I remember once seeing one of these booklets. I think he did it. Actually, I have an idea brought out of lots of leaving or something for holidays. People not so aware.
Surely, right?
Yeah, they don't
Any
people.
hotel is always going as well.
So probably what they do is most hotels will have a hechsher, and part of the kashrus authority will be to make sure.
They've got it sorted.
Yeah, these guys probably more.
You like to think.
You hope so. That's right.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.